punching the same clock, walking the same tightrope as everyone on the block. The fella you ought to be is three-dimensional.
Now she's rehearsing for the lead in Maine. But 30 years ago, Lee Meriwether was poured into a catsuit to play Batman's feline foe.
I couldn't think of her as evil. She was having fun, and she didn't kill anybody, not really. I mean, disintegrating a few people here and there. They were all brought back anyway.
TV troublemakers, the characters we love to hate. Mostly because they seem to have more fun than we do. I mean, let's face it, would you rather be Richie Cunningham or J.R. Ewing? Almost every show has its resident villain. But for all their devilish deeds, away from the set, they're really quite a nice bunch, once you get to know them.
Good morning, Nurse Adams.
Don't you ever sleep, sister?
I wouldn't, if all my nurses lived it up the way you do.
Have you any complaints about my work?
No, nurse, only your morals.
She was a bitch, but it was for a good reason. She would never let her nurses do anything that wasn't proper, and she kept the whole hospital in line. She ran that hospital.
Cornelia Francis breathed venom into Sister Scott, and the audience loved it.
Often people used to think I was Sister Scott herself, and you go into a supermarket and they'd run a bloody mile. I mean, they'd see me going with the trolley. They'd have a look to see what was in it, but then they'd suddenly say, "Oh, that terrible woman," and then you give a lovely smile and say, "Hi, how are you?" And "Oh, you're human, you're nice."
Good morning.
Unfortunately for Cornelia, Sister Scott roles don't come along very often.
Good afternoon, this is Cellar Masters. I'm Corny, can I help you?
Today, she earns a living answering the phone for a wine club.
I'm loving it. It's great. And you can come and go as you please. If you get a job, you can just leave and come back when it's finished.
And while she works on her telephone manor, Cornelia hasn't given up on her career of choice.
You're an actress all your life. You just don't lose it, and you never stop, as opposed to a retiring age there isn't one. And, you know, as I have said before, every dog has its day, and this bitch ain't over yet. I hope.
There are bad guys, and then there are troublemakers, and then there are those you just want to take... I mean, take Frank Burns, please.
Are those gurney tables? Right. And those are surgical masks. You're playing ping pong. I told you it was ping pong. Absolutely right, Frank. Dismissed.
Frank Burns was an easy target for the scalpel-sharp wit of Hawkeye and Trapper. Since leaving the show, Larry Linville has been subjected to a strange sort of hero worship.
I mean, I've had ridiculous women in a bar come up to me, you know, half-loaded, and come up to me and say, "Please whine. I love it when you whine for me." You know, and I, like, go away. You know, would you just go away? I mean, I'm not reactionary or bitter about that kind of thing because I've created that kind of monster myself. But it's a bit odd.
Today, home is New York. His office is Broadway, where Larry usually gets cast as the villain.
But that's the fun of being an actor. One minute you scare them, the next minute you make them laugh, and you tell them a story, and they're appreciative, and it really is a hell of a good life.
To join the Navy.
This man has made a remarkable recovery considering the fate he met with more than 20 years ago.
It was interesting because people tend to remember his death, which was actually the first live death on Australian television.
Hey, can you swim, fish cake? I can swim like a shark, son, but not in that treacle.
Bellbird's conniving real estate agent Charlie Cousens wasn't pushed. He fell. It happened on a Thursday, but the audience had to wait for the following episode to see if he survived. It caused an uproar.
And there were people in Parliament saying, you know, my family spent the most unhappy weekend of their lives, not knowing if Charlie Cousens lived or died. The ABC's being responsible once again.
Now, Robin works in film, TV, and theatre, playing for a few hundred here and a few million there.
The show I did in India last year played to 400 million viewers. So, I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to think on one night you're just going to play to more people than you're playing the rest of your life. Or if you're playing in India, the rest of your lives.
Robin Ramsey, a fine actor. But like Christopher Skase, he'll always be remembered for his quick exit from television. Now here's a show full of troublemakers. Prisoner. Remember the freak? We hated her, didn't we? And what about Franky Doyle? Imagine incarcerating that little charmer.
Hey, I forgot to tell you. We got a new nickname for you. It's old B's idea. Want to know what it is?
I think it liberated women's roles on Australian television. There hadn't been a character like the Freak or like Franky Doyle before. And I think producers sat up, the audience sat up, and the response has gone on around the world since then.
The only way to treat people like you is to step on them all the time.
They never appeared in Prisoner together, but Maggie Kirkpatrick and Carol Burns share the cult status of playing two of TV's most loved baddies.
I've had proposals of marriage from both sexes. So
I haven't, from either.
Today, both Carol and Maggie are stars of the stage, based in London.
When my character died, I went to Los Angeles, and the wake that they had in Los Angeles for Franky Doyle was superb. They marched down the street with a draped coffin with Franky Doyle on the side of it and ended up at one of the best gay discos in Los Angeles and had a wild, wild party. I had never, you know, I'm a quiet Brisbane girl. I had never been part of anything like this before.
Maggie Kirkpatrick is still enjoying the fruits of success, resurrecting the Freak with a high-camp production of Prisoner, the musical.
To maintain the stern manner on stage and that austere costume and hairdo, of course, but then to burst out into a big rock and roll number about black leather gloves is a joy, a joy, with tongue planted very firmly in the cheek.
Which begs the question, what next?
Oh, who knows? Maybe Hollywood? It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, Prisoner the movie, isn't
it? Yes. It seems like a natural progression somehow to me, but we'll wait and see.
Now there's a scary thought. And while we're on the subject of troublemakers, here's one who was once described as the slipperiest, most two-faced schemer to grace the television. The show, Leave It to Beaver. The troublemaker, a little weasel called Eddie Haskell. Good morning, Mrs. Cleaver.
By the way, Mrs. Cleaver, I found a quaint little bakery over on Hudson Avenue. You should try it sometime. Very reasonable.
Thank you, Eddie.
Eddie Haskell was what Australians call a crawler. Wally's best friend ingratiated himself on the adults and generally made life difficult for the Beaver.
The only time your dad'll start falling is when you move back home. Who left your cage open?
He's not really bad. Eddie was not ever stealing anything or into alcohol or drugs. Eddie wasn't a bad kid. He was just mischievous.
But then you'd expect Ken Osmond to say that. After leaving the Beaver, Ken disappeared into TV typecast wilderness. Today, he's building a plane with his son Christian in his Los Angeles backyard. Considering the life he's led, it's a miracle Ken is here at all. First, there was the helicopter service with his brother. The chopper crashed, and so did the business.
We were unhurt, my brother and I, but the company was a mortal wound financially.
A lucky escape. Next career move, he was on patrol with the Los Angeles police. This time, he wasn't so lucky.
September 20th of 1980, we chased a car theft suspect, which resulted in my being shot 3 times. Scars aren't all that good looking, but that's what a .38 caliber hole looks like.
Then there were those persistent rumors that Eddie Haskell had become a porn star.
As it turned out, it was John Holmes. It was pretty infamous in the porno field, or was until he died. And to my understanding, he was using the credit that he had played Eddie Haskell, using this as a credit to get work.
Ken has now settled down to the relatively safe job of property management. That should keep his feet firmly planted on the ground, at least until he finishes building his plane.
So I think I'll get a fixed-wing license, and it'll be fun.
Then he was the young talent with the big voice. Now he's making a comeback.